welcome to Talks at GS. I'm delighted to be joined by Toni Petersson, who is serial entrepreneur and CEO of Oatly. So Oatly was founded in 1994 by a group of scientists with the lactose intolerance in mind and trying to find a solution to that. The focus was, of course, on the local market, on Sweden, which, by the way, is a market that we see a huge amount of innovation, both in food, but also in approach to environment and sustainability, which is very interesting for us. How would you describe the first years and the first journey, the first steps in the journey of the company?
Yeah, I mean, we have to go back all the way to the 60s and when lactose intolerance was discovered by a Swedish professor. And one of the founders, Richard Öster, made his PhD with this professor. And him and a team of scientists or researchers thought, they figured, so if a vast majority of the world population are intolerant to lactose, why don't we make something that is better for human beings and the planet? So they wanted to make this milk-like product that you could drink and use for coffee, cereal, baking, cooking, and all that, but with a different, with a macronutritional composition that is more in sync with the human needs. So that's what they wanted to do and create. And they came up with this enzymation technology, which is basically replicating nature's own process. So taking a kernel of oats, make it liquid, keeping all the goodness of oats without adding anything. So that is the patent on which the company started in '93. And I think that heritage has been extremely important. It still is extremely important for us. We're putting a lot of effort in research and clinical studies and stuff like that. But at the beginning of when companies started, it was like this amazing entrepreneurial environment, spirit of just creating stuff because they could, create stuff, not with a real purpose, And I think they started a company to sell ingredients to other companies, like dairy industry, for instance. Or licenses. And it just turned out that nobody was really interested. So the company started in '93. In 2001, they needed to establish this brand called Oatly. And when I entered the company, it was more in a consolidating phase of trying to make money. It was like they molded it into more of a fully fledged food company with all the processes, the structures, and departments in place. So that's when I entered. But during the course of those 18 years, you can see distinctly those different phases of entrepreneurial phase and more of a commercial phase, and then a consolidating phase.
So going back to the time when you joined the company, you ran a number of different businesses. You sold a bunch. You traveled. You didn't really intend on going and becoming a CEO of a company, but then this opportunity came up. What did you see at the time? What did you see, and did you have a vision of where it was heading and what's the potential to where it is today?
I had no intentions of becoming a CEO of a food company, I can tell you that. But the reason why I did this is the main thing is to make this world better, honestly. That was the reason. And I was staying with my family in Costa Rica for a couple of years, and you could see we were exposed to climate change firsthand. You can see what extreme drought, extreme rainfall did to human beings and the planet. And I wanted to help. And I'm not a professor, and I'm not a scientist or expert of any sort. So business was the only way I could do this. So that was the reason why I was so attracted to Oatly.
So when you joined in 2012, company was very small, growing relatively slowly. Today, Oatly is one of the fastest growing consumer goods companies globally. Huge success at large scale across many geographies. What would you attribute the success to? What actions do you feel that you have done as a CEO and the company have done as a business to take it from where it was in 2012 to where it is today?
Well, that's a big question. We put climate change on top of our agenda back in 2013. I entered November 2012. 2013, we put that on top of everything. And you know, creating this purpose was super important. Maybe more important than anything else was to kind of articulate the culture, the reason for existence, and put that in the center of everything, every decision we made. Still is, you know. There has to be a reason why people, I mean, companies are all about people. And there has to be a reason why you wake up in the morning and go to work, you know, when it's raining, when it's cold, windy. Like, why the hell do you get up, you know? In our company, that is so obvious. And that makes things a little bit easier on us, you know? Running a business when you have that purpose is easier. It's not easy, but it's easier. And running the business becomes more intuitive, sort of. I think that is the biggest thing.
So touching about sustainability, because sustainability is core to, as you said, what you do, what you believe in, and everything you do. How do you see the role of Oatly in transforming everyone's lives, and maybe even more specifically the food industry that has dramatic challenges when it comes to being sustainable? How do you apply what Oatly is doing in order to help with that transformation?
I think, you know, today for people, sustainability is more of an ideology. It's a structured belief system, almost like a religion, but in this case, it's relied on what science says in regard to climate change and environmental issues. And I think we as a company has, I think, a license to take a place in that ideology. And we just want to prove that you can be successful by doing good. And it would be a shame if the food industry didn't fundamentally change. If you just think about it, like what we do, like we're the bad guys here, you know. It's the #1 reason for deforestation. We're accountable for 30% of the carbon emissions here. 15% coming from 14-15% coming from animal-based food, which is more than all transportations combined. We use 70% of the freshwater resources on Earth to produce food, and we're 7.6 billion people on Earth, right? So, and on top of that, you just add the non-communicable diseases. You see diabetes, heart health diseases, and all that increasing, and it's all related to the diet and the lifestyle. If we don't do anything by 2050, we're going to be about 10 billion people, right? We're going to use almost half of the ice-free area on Earth to produce food. Today we use 38%, 30% from animal-based food production, right? But in 2050, more population, and we're going to use more land, almost 50%. Just imagine that, picture that. We're going to use about 84% of the freshwater resources, and would have missed the climate goals completely, right? So it's not that we have a choice. We have to change. And I think, but the incentives for in the food industry isn't really there. It's kind of ruled by the big food, which who also designed this whole system, you know. And don't get me wrong. I think they want to do good. They want to change. But it's more about improvements, right? If we want to do this right, we have to change completely. And I don't see the incentives, which is why it's so important. Like institutions, companies like you are so important in creating those incentives. How do you monitor and value companies that are doing good for the company as much as as the profits that it brings? You know. So if you can crack that code, things can change.
And you think that change ought to come, because you mentioned incentives, and incentives is governments, politicians. Do you think that to crack it, you need the politicians to align, or do you think that it could be also a populist movement, as you said?
Absolutely. You know, everything needs to take place. Right now, it's driven by all these young people who understand that they're going to inherit everything that we're going to give to them, right? So to them, like this whole movement is like based on true concerns. It's not commercially driven. It's like true, which is why it's so powerful. So we have that, but you need political incentives. You need capital incentives. You need it all, the whole package. But it's starting, I hope.
So when we come to balancing doing the good and also the P&L, you run a business, you have investors.
Oh.
How do you balance it?
That's a good question that owners of companies should discuss in depth, starting right now, or if they do already. But you know, sometimes you have to give up margins to do good. Sometimes you have to give up profitability to do good, you know? And then you just have to make sure that they think that it's worth it, you know? It's a big topic. And it comes down, I think it comes down to the capital.
So we touched upon it is a revolution, and no real revolution can happen without people following. And when it comes to consumer engagement, what you and Oatly have done in the last few years is truly phenomenal, creating almost like a cult of followers, from loyal consumers to baristas in coffee shops all over the world. And part of it is through a differentiated consumer engagement. And people here in the audience might remember you from a commercial you guys ran on you playing in the field this song about wow, no cow.
I took one for the team there.
You definitely put yourself out there.
I did.
Or not many CEOs would have gone that, but that creates some bond with your consumers. How do you think about your connectivity with consumers?
You know what? I mean, companies. A company is its people. You know, a company is not run by a logo type or travel policies or ERP system. It's actually run by people. You know, so it's a bunch of people who wants to do something good. And I think that being those human beings, you also have to kind of acknowledge failures and mistakes, right? And I think that maybe that's what being transparent too and human is about speaking about those things. As much as speaking about all the good you do, right? But I think it's right now it's maybe a little bit one-sided. If you look from a branding perspective, and a lot of different companies, it's about bragging how good you are. And just imagine having a friend just brag about how good you are. That's pretty boring. So I think this being human part and not a logo type was very important right from the start. And being a bit vulnerable, like acknowledge your imperfections and be transparent about that. I mean, we had this, since 2012, we increased the sales by 10, right? And during all that period, we reduced our climate impact and our environmental impact. But in our sustainability book last year, we didn't speak about that. Instead, the headline was slightly worse than last year, because we wanted to speak about the challenges of growing fast and trying to be sustainable, you know? So I think that is a conversation you need to have and being open. Food industry, I think, is very closed, you know, not open enough.
So what makes you feel that you're doing the right thing by being self-critical? And if you have not seen this report, I think you should, because the level of honesty is quite brutal. How do you know that this is the right thing as a CEO, and then of course as a board that is saying to the management, go ahead, go say that we were actually worse than last year?
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, right? But it develops us, it makes us better. It puts pressure on us, you know, and that's how we can get better and improve things in life and in the world. So I think it's definitely something very positive to talk about the flaws and mistakes that you make, yeah, and be open about it.
An underlier to your success is that consumers are adopting more and more vegan diets, flexitarian diets, and adopting more plant-based into their diets overall. How much do you think this is a fad, and what do you think is out of that is here to stay for the long term?
Well, I mean, this is just the beginning of the curve. I mean, if we say the opposite, it would be like denying things, you know. It would be like saying, like Gen Z and millennials, like 5-10 years from now, they would say, like, you know, this thing about environment and health, like, it's not that important anymore. Like, why don't we start eating meat and dairy? You know, I don't think anybody believes that, right? So I think if we're in a very, very early stage, actually, and we're not near that tipping point yet when you can see this massive acceleration, you know, at large scale. We're not there yet. But we're getting there. There are a couple of components that needs to be in place before that happens.
Which are what?
Big players, retailers, like really actively working in that direction. Chains, worldwide chains, moving political, governmental incentives. There are things that needs to be in place before, like we can see this massive scale that needs to happen.
Now, Oatly is a company that is seeing a tremendous amount of change, and you adapt as you go. And as you said, you make ideas, you make things happen. Where do you see Oatly in 5 years, in 10 years?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, we as a company, the way we define our company is not oat milk makers. I think we build our business on sustainability, which kind of allows us to expand the business to a different dimension, than just being in a non-dairy category. So I'm super excited. We have a lot of plans. Hopefully we can realize those plans. But I mean, we definitely have potential to become a global brand, for instance. A brand and not just a logotype or a producer of food. A brand today has to mean something to people, So if you put the purpose there as kind of the guideline and kind of in the center of everything, and I think I mentioned it before, that purpose is, I mean, the reason for existence is so important today, and it's about being authentic. So you need to put that purpose in the center of everything. You need to let that purpose be the reason why you can hire world talents. It has to be the reason why the purpose has to be the reason why you can keep the people in the company, and the purpose needs to be the reason why you can develop as a company, and that has to be kind of transcended into a consumer experience. I think we have those components in place to build a way bigger business than we actually think we can do. So I'm super excited to see, having this conversation 5-10 years from now. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.